Hello, everyone, and welcome to number 6, the neck profile number 6. And I'm joined today by Nick Johnston. Thanks for joining us, Nick. How you doing?
Good, lucky number 6.
Hello, everyone, and
You've got to pause the stream, sir.
6, the neck profile number.
Oh yes,
There you go. Nick is, if you don't know who Nick is, I mean, everyone here probably does. Everyone listening, currently, you've released 3 albums of sort of instrumental guitar material. You're doing very well on the sort of YouTube and record and live circuit at the moment. It's pretty difficult to be in the guitar scene and not sort of have you pop up.
that's good. I also apologize for that. If
No, it's great. It's what many of us aspire to.
Thanks, Jake. That's really nice to say, man.
No, so obviously, incredible player and very sort of distinctive style of both playing and writing. But I was maybe gonna think about kicking off by asking you how you kind of got started with music and guitar.
Good question. So, first of all, yeah, thanks a lot for having me. I love the podcast, and everyone that's been on it is amazing, and is like you were just saying about myself, someone that always pops up in conversation about kind of modern guitar playing. So it's definitely a thrill to be here.
Thanks so much.
Yeah, so just kind of getting into it. Basically, I've been playing guitar for half my life now, so 14 years. I'm 28, and I started playing guitar just before I started high school, so 2001. Good times. And it's funny, I don't have a musical family at all. No one in my family plays. No one, even as far as I know, in my extended family plays. But I grew up in a very small town, and I had a neighbor that I used to hear him playing guitar, just kind of like pop punk stuff coming out of his basement window. And he was a little bit older than me, so one day I worked up the courage to go and see if I could sit down and watch him just kind of play guitar in his basement. And he was a really cool dude. And he was 15 at the time, of course. And when you're 14 and there's someone a year older, 2 years older than you, that's a huge age gap at that point in your life. So I didn't think he'd let me come down and hang out, but yeah, he just sat there and showed me a bunch of stuff. And then I went home with just guitar playing, and the whole, I guess just the whole act of playing an instrument was imprinted on the front of my brain like a cattle prod, just like branded right there. And I couldn't stop thinking about it. So I eventually kind of begged my parents to help me buy my first. I had a Squier Bullet and a used Fender Frontman 15 amp with reverb. And I played the crap.
Oh, nice.
I played the crap out of that thing, and it was great, man. Like once I just heard a pitch raised by moving my finger, it was all over. It's like this is it. It's the best thing ever. So
Yeah.
it's kind of like just working up the courage to watch someone play, and then like that was it. Just that one little spark.
Amazing. And what music were you playing, or were you into at the time?
Oh geez, what was I into? Because I grew up. My dad he's kind of in that. Like, let's just say his favorite band growing up was Led Zeppelin. So he was always part of that kind of like hard rock era, that 70s rock, 60s rock kind of era. So it was always like Zeppelin, Black Sabbath, Pink Floyd, just stuff of that era, always playing in the house as I was growing up. So I kind of just gravitated towards that stuff in the beginning. And then I had some buddies that played, and they were into Metallica and the big four metal bands. So I was playing some of that stuff. But then, I would play stuff that was a little bit more pop, kind of like easier stuff and little riffy stuff that I could wrap my brain and fingers around, like Weezer or some Nirvana stuff. Just anything that was immediately cool and fun to play, I think I gravitated towards, just because I wanted to be around the guitar so much, and I wanted to be able to play it.
Yeah. And when you were learning all this stuff, did you do it by ear or sort of like tab or mixture or
I
what?
think I didn't have the internet at that point, so it definitely, yeah. So it wasn't tabs. I mean, if I did have any tabs, it was the transcription that would come with. Do you remember Guitar One magazine? Did you ever get that one by chance?
We didn't have Guitar One. We had several other magazines: Guitar Techniques, Guitarist, and Total Guitar.
Oh yeah, you got. Oh, that's like a holy trinity right there.
Well, they are excellent publications. You've got to say.
Oh yeah. So I had Guitar One. I think I had a subscription to that magazine pretty early on, but the first issue I bought was the same. Was of the same month I started playing guitar, and I kept that issue, and I have a couple like cutouts from it that I used to have in my bedroom as a kid, and
Nice.
and the tabs were, I think, Weezer for Hash Pipe was in there. There's a Stone Temple Pilots song, a song by a band called Lifehouse.
Yeah.
And it's called Hanging by a Moment. And Alien Ant Farm's cover of Smooth Criminal. So I remember learning all that stuff. And it was on the radio, and it was on the Canadian equivalent to MTV, which was Much Music. And yeah, so I learned all that stuff and whatever I could pick up with my, at that point, very underdeveloped ear. And I just loved the whole romance of playing guitar, like everything about it. Like, you don't need any, like, you can do it by yourself, you can do it any time of the day. Just, oh man, it was just looking back on it, it was magical.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's a special time, isn't it? When you're starting out. But there were some interesting things you said about the magazine, which is, when you discovered those magazines, sometimes you learn to play stuff that you'd never really listened to, or that you thought, who's this player? Those are a lot of notes. Who's this guy?
Yeah.
Or you'd find it's your first sort of plunge into gear before the internet, where it's kind of find your own thing, and there's so much stuff. But the magazine was nice because you'd sort of find all these people and approaches to doing things and get all this excellent advice straight away. So I made a lot of cutouts, and I've got a folder at home with all the Guitar Technique stuff. And
there was this really cool kind of mystique still about certain guitar players. Like, you didn't know everything about someone, or you couldn't follow their stream, or you couldn't follow their posts. You just kind of had to wait until they'd show up in a magazine, and you hope that your favorite player would be on the cover of the next issue, or you have a column or something. So there was like this anticipation, and there was just this kind of slight mystique to it, which I really loved as a kid. It just kind of added to the whole newness of playing guitar and getting into music. Yeah,
but it sounds like you took it quite seriously from the get-go, and quite sort of diligently going for stuff.
Totally, yeah. I mean, it's funny. For the first couple of years, I didn't really have any interest in the kind of the technical side of guitar playing, because I didn't really. It's not why I got into it. I just got into it because I just loved the idea of getting to play an instrument. But because of all of that, I guess, searching and staying on top of magazines, you just slowly start to, like, the magazine's telling you, these are some guys you should check out. And you slowly kind of get into them, and then you go and find one of their CDs and an HMV, and then you're like, okay, now I'm into this thing.
Yeah, or just going and, I've read about this person, and you go and buy 2 of their CDs, So it's like, whoa. Well, I've never heard any of their music, but you're just going to go buy their stuff.
Exactly. I still do that. Totally. Still do that all the time. But
I think that's a rare quality.
Yeah, it's just, I live with my girlfriend. We've been together for like 6 years or so, and we live the same, having physical CDs. She loves just going and buying stuff. So we kind of, that's like an event we kind of share together, and it's just such a part of my existence, my history with music, that I can't turn it off.
Do you still listen to music quite a bit then?
Oh yeah, totally. I actually just got onto doing the whole Apple Music thing, and it's overwhelming. It's just ridiculous, and I'm eating up my data. so fast now because of it. So I'm just experimenting with that whole thing. I still buy. I think I just bought. I actually just bought a Porcupine Tree. They did like a reissue of Fear of Blank Planet, but it came with the live DVD and the second disc.
Wow.
I just bought that yesterday, and I've been because I'm doing this new record with Gavin Harrison. I've been watching the live DVD kind of just on repeat, and it's just like, oh man, this is so cool. So yeah, having the product in your hands, and it's just, I don't know, it's important to me, and that's why I still release my music on physical CD too, and I try and get them directly to the fans and to try and sign every one of them. Just all of that comes back to that starting point for me with having the magazine and buying the CD or watching my buddy play guitar. It's imprinted at a very early age.
Yeah, cool, man. And your CDs as well. I noticed that you that sort of expertly presented in a very, very cool sort of comic book style. But it's clear that sort of presentation must mean a lot to you.
Yeah, there's just something about it that I couldn't get into with the whole me on the cover of the mag. I just could never allow myself to. I don't want to be on the cover of my own CD. I want something that's vibrant and fun to look at, and especially when you take the book out and kind of flip through it, there's all sorts of extra images you just wouldn't see unless you own the copy of the CD.
Sure.
Which is special it was always special for me. It's like I'd see, on TV or in an ad, I'd see the cover, but then you get it home and you like, oh wow, look at them in the studio, or here's some extra artwork, or here's some extra little clue as to what this band's all about. That was really important to me, and it's not cheap to do that kind of thing. So you kind of have to go, all right, well, this has to mean a lot if I'm going to do it. So I try and put everything into it, and hopefully people appreciate it on some level.
Yeah, and I think it makes your I think it's very strong for a sense of branding, and it makes your sort of brand quite distinctive.
Totally, yeah. Yeah, and that's I guess another thing too, is having that identity, and hopefully one day people immediately not only being able to recognize you by your music, but also just the way everything looks and the cohesiveness of the entire branding, the whole product. Yeah. Something definitely working on.
With the internet, it's such a visual culture. If you post if you write a post and there's not a picture, I would guess that the statistics for likes and engagement goes down dramatically. So just text is kind of gone. But the moment you put like a really engaging, interesting image on, it is that's really that's really valuable. So if you've got that down, I think so. That's really cool.
Thank you very much. Very cool. Yeah, and that's all. Excuse me. That's all my my friend Mark, who does all the artwork and all the posters for me. He's been the guy, my go-to guy for the past I guess five years now since I put the first one out. It was funny. I met him at an art show downtown in this kind of artsy city that I live in, and he had his booth set up, and I kind of went up to him and was like, "Are you into music?" And he was a guitar player. He was a big Beatles fan. He built a bunch of guitars, like replica guitars and stuff. So we got off to a great start, and he immediately loved the music, and he got back to me with that first ridiculous album cover with the car and the robots and the ray guns and all that good stuff. And I was like, yeah, this is perfect.
Yeah, and it really fits. It's so cool, like how it fits with the style of the vibe of the music. Yeah,
and it's funny, man. Like that's evolved so much. This new album that I'm going to be releasing, this will be the first record I've ever done where every style, every song is in the same realm. Like the first album, you start the record off, it's kind of like this funky tune, and there's like a reggae-ish kind of tune, and there's a blues track, and there's some sort of surf kind of thing, and then there's some Latin stuff. Which at the time, you look at that album cover, and it's basically saying there's a lot of insanity going on here, and it's kind of like a wild presentation. Whereas now the it's kind of a little bit more refined and reined in a little bit. So I'm actually we're kind of discussing what we're going to do for the new cover, because it doesn't feel the same as the other records, and I don't think the same artwork would apply to this new one. So it's a bit of a mystery right now what we're going to do.
And what's the what you obviously 3 albums in, what would you say you've done differently writing this album, as well as obviously you've just touched on it, but like maybe go into some other sort of like technical areas in terms of workflow process?
Well, I mean, the first album I had written, so this is back in 2011. I was 24, I guess. I started writing that album when I was about 22, 23. And I had written the album, my debut album, quote unquote, 4 or 5 times over before I was happy with the material. And at that point, I had absolutely no idea. I had no idea about anything related to the music industry. I had no presence online. I didn't even know what social media was, really. I had a personal Facebook page, and I watched, a lot of my favorite guitar players play on YouTube, but I didn't know. And I don't even know if there was much of that kind of like guitar, like independent guitar player culture at that point, like there is now. So I had no benchmark. I had no context for how to go about releasing an album, or even how to make an album, or what a budget is, and how to get from demo to final master release project. So I kind of went into the studio with these 10 songs, and I went in with my buddy Matt, who's the bass player on the first 2 albums, and we had a weekend to record the entire album. The drums had been done by a friend of mine named Travis Orban, who we kind of just met online. I sent him an email one day saying I liked his stuff, and we decided to work together. But I had a weekend to record that album. So if you listen to it, the production's not, it's not crazy elaborate. It's not over the top. It's very much a live album, so to speak. At least 2/3 of the album in terms of instrumentation. So just even that alone, like understanding, you go into a studio, you have to make sure you got your parts down well enough. How much money you spending, what's the workflow like. All of that was an extreme learning experience for me. So compared to that, I 3 albums later, I understand how much time you need to do something like this. The budget, everything from artwork to, what studio you're going to use, who you're going to work with, who's going to help you get to that kind of sound in your head. It's impossible to I've learned more than I can possibly imagine. Every single facet of it has gotten better. And of course, you hope after writing 4 albums worth of music, your songwriting ability and chops have improved as well. And that's just something with time. And for each album, I usually write 30 songs or so, and I kind of decide what I like. And if and I'd say 90% of the music that I write that doesn't get picked is absolutely horrible. It's just experimenting and kind of trying to develop your sound a little bit. But I think also too, it depends what you're listening to. If you're listening to metal all the time, you're probably going to write something a little heavier with more riff-based stuff. I like music from every era, from all sorts of different styles. So I find that melody seems to be the connective tissue in all of my music. Some sort of interesting melody with some interesting harmony behind it.
Yeah, that's a fair point. I think that comes across. And cool. The other thing I was going to ask you about all this sort of thing is, if you were saying to someone who was doing their first album, what advice would you give them?
Oh man, well, it depends. Like, it depends if they're trying to get noticed, if you're trying to get your name out there, or if you're just trying to make a really good album, and then after you finish the album, you start worrying about all that promotion kind of nightmare stuff. I think honestly, the main thing if you're doing the first record is just don't feel like you need to rush to get your stuff out there. Wait until you've developed a style that you feel is kind of a little bit more unique to yourself, that you're actually happy with every piece of music on the album, and don't spend years making it. Just when you have the music written, go book some studio time, save up, get some money together, spend a week or 4 or 5 days or whatever, and just make the album and then kind of move on. I think I think if you spend too long on something, it can lose a little bit of that kind of spark, that magic. I mean, you can spend your entire life writing music, of course, but I think once you have it, you have to get it out so you can move on to get the next thing out. And that's the constant struggle with me, is just I want to release more stuff, but I need to make sure I do it right. Once I have everything done, okay, now I can record it, try and get all the promotion stuff going, and then get back in the studio and do it again. It's just, I'd say, don't start getting on that train until you've got something unique to say. And you're happy with everything. That's the biggest thing. And
it sounds like you spend quite a lot of time writing. It sounds like it's been quite a prolific period for you.
Yeah, that's kind of my that's my focal point, I guess, with music. I think just the idea of sitting down and developing a sound and writing something you're proud of, that's always been the best feeling, is when you finish writing something, you go, yes, that is what I was trying to achieve. That's what I heard. That's what I pictured in my mind. And when you get that, it's like a drug. It's like a certain euphoria.
Yeah, but, I know the one.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying. Yeah, and also too, like after spending so long, 10, 12 years or so, just kind of working on technique and playing, I want to have like something to show for that. I want to have a catalog of music that I can look back on one day and hopefully be proud of.
No, of course, and it's there now, isn't it? It's there for posterity. You can say, well, I did this then, and it's not this kind of amorphous idea about what your music is. You've got a record of it.
Totally, yeah. It's actually,
cool.
Thinking back, it's quite exciting.
And you just mentioned sort of work on your technique and stuff like that. Did you have a teacher? Did you go to a school? What was your sort of way in there?
So for the first 4 years or so, I was 100%, I guess you could say, self-taught. So a lot of the stuff I had developed was, like I was saying, from guitar magazines or listening to records, or and I could do a lot of the stuff that you see me doing videos now, like a lot of sweep picking stuff, the hybrid picking stuff, tapping, all that kind of technical stuff. I was able to do that at a pretty early point in my playing, 3 years in or whatever. But at some point, I was, you go, what am I actually doing? What is the point of this? How can I use this maybe musically? So when I was 18, I took guitar lessons for about half a year. This really great teacher who kind of got all of my theory chops together. He helped me out with that. So modes, intervals, harmony, just even the idea of how to write a song, and he was also an instrumental guitar player. So I took some inspiration from him and tried to do something similar. So yeah, that was basically around the time I was 18, so just finishing high school. And then after that, I worked for a few years developing all that stuff. So I got a job teaching guitar at a small shop in the city Guelph that I live in, which is a funny name, Guelph. And for about 4 or 5 years, I was just teaching at a music store, 60, 70 students a week sometimes. And then after that, I kind of started just writing my own music and thought, how can I maybe take this and do something with it where I can start playing with the band and doing some touring and just kind of experiment and learn more about the industry. It was a very natural, curious process.
Sure. Did you do the band thing in a big way, or did you gig a lot when you're sort of in your formative years?
Yeah, I didn't really start gigging until I was 20, 21. And I played in a trio. It was like a world music acoustic trio. There was a cajon player. The other guitar player was the lead, and he was like the primary songwriter. And I played all the rhythm guitar for this group. And we played, hundreds of gigs. And it was such a strange thing for me, because I was an electric guitar player, and I loved guys like Yngwie and Stevie Ray Vaughan and Beck and all these guys, which you don't think acoustic guitar when you think, at least I don't, when you think those guys. So, there's this kid who loves all that kind of stuff, playing, these world music rhythms and, wearing a suit while I played it. It was very strange, but it was such a cool education, something that, looking back, I was very lucky to get, because you had to focus on stuff that was probably a weak point.
Yeah, it's probably really good for your discipline and the rhythm side of things. If you're doing that a lot, then that must have had a knock-on effect to your playing and writing, I guess, as well.
Totally, and especially with it being kind of like the world music stuff, I think just the harmony in some of those songs, the chord progressions and the arrangements, that started to seep into how I write music. Like especially on that second album, In a Locked Room on the Moon, a lot of the music on that album has different kind of world music, I guess, cliches in it, and that came from, and what year was that? That was 2013. So yeah, I'd been playing in that band long enough where that filtered down into some songwriting, which is pretty cool.
Awesome. Yeah. I think that's it's. I think one of the themes that's come out of these discussions on the podcast is the idea that these kind of random life events, stages in your life that you don't really choose, can really have a profound effect on how you're shaped as a guitar player. There are very few people who can, hand on heart, say, I have totally shaped myself. Even sort of being exposed to Led Zeppelin,
Sure.
has probably really affected your sense, or your early sense, of what good guitar playing was.
Definitely. Yeah, it's part of you. It gets in you at an early age, hopefully, and it's in your DNA.
Yeah, absolutely. And did you find it kind of helped you, all this playing live? Did it help you sort of build up a consistency? Because one thing I noticed from your playing and from other great players is that there are a lot of people out there posting videos where there's like a kind of 15-second clip Instagram type thing, but I noticed that you can play for like sort of 5 minutes without making a blunder at all, which is pretty cool.
Cool, man. I think that, probably, I would imagine that came from something. What it was the main thing I learned from doing all those gigs in a style of music, or in styles of music I was weak with, you learn that it doesn't really matter. Like if you make a mistake, it's not the end of the world. You live and you keep playing, just keep going. And that's something with the internet and posting stuff and knowing that there are people that are going to post stuff about what you're posting. You kind of just play. This is what's going to come out. You don't worry too much about it. You do your thing, and if people like it, that's great. But I think, from playing so much with people who are far better than me, and in situations I was really uncomfortable, you just kind of learn, like, just let it go, just play, and everything's gonna be okay in the end,
Yeah, no one's gonna die if you.
No one's gonna die, and if you actually can, if you can shut that side, like that fear off, if you can get rid of it, it's so much more fun. And when I'm doing clinics and stuff like that, and like the NAMM. Like NAMM's a stressful situation no matter what, but you just go, you know what, man, I'm here. They wanted me to come here for a reason, so just do your thing and try and have fun and smile and be yourself. And that comes across, hopefully it comes across when I'm just recording a little video or something, me just playing. It's just, this guy seems like he's having fun. He seems like he's enjoying himself and he's doing his thing. Ideally that.
Yeah, man. Yeah, no, it does. It absolutely does. And it's a very sort of honest and explorative way that you kind of do these kind of open improvisations. I think that's cool because they kind of the things kind of hang together nicely, and it's very as well. What's cool about what you do is that you're quite composed and relaxed. You've got the intensity there. But there's space still, which is cool.
Right. Yeah, and that's something I've definitely worked hard at trying to develop is organizing of ideas and building and having something start off quiet and the speed and the intensity naturally developing within a piece of music or just within an improvisation or something. And it's, from day to day, I'm good at it. Sometimes I'm terrible at it. And, I'm sure if I look back on stuff from a few months ago, I'd probably cringe. But what's funny, man? I do so much posting on my Facebook page. I kind of have always looked at it as like a blog or as like a kind of musical diary. When I'm sure some people that had a diary growing up would look at stuff they wrote a few years back, they'd be like, what was I thinking? And I try and look at my Facebook page the same way. It's like you can see the kind of person I was a few years ago or 5 years from now. If you look at stuff now, you'd be like, oh, he was into that now. It's just, just me. It's just what I like to do. And again, hopefully that comes across in how I'm playing or performing. I'm getting better at it. I'm definitely getting better at it. A couple of years ago, I was.
Well, I think it's
really terrible, but we're getting there.
Well, it's like I think there are many of us who are, or many people online who are sort of excellent improvisers.
Sure,
but not everyone improvises like a composer with a kind of idea that there's a maybe sort of an 8-bar structure or something.
Right.
And that's a different thing. I think that probably helps that you've written a lot. And when just we did have one question on Facebook.
Sure.
And it's from Rohan van Rensburg.
Oh yeah, fellow.
Hopefully I pronounced that right.
If you're listening, Opeth is awesome. Like his favorite band.
Oh, who's he play?
Pardon me, sir?
What did you say? Sorry.
Oh, I was just saying. I think because I've done a lesson with him. He's a huge Opeth fan, so I was just saying. I was giving a shout out on his behalf.
Very cool, very cool. And yeah, you're quite well known as a teacher, but we'll go there later. I think,
cool.
Or at least it seems like you do a lot of it. But Rohan said, "Hi Nick, could you give us a basic idea of your writing process, i.e., the birth of an idea and a general idea of how you flesh it out and turn it into a song? Do you schedule writing time and complete ideas, or is it more fluid?"
Oh wow, that's a really difficult question to answer. I still play a lot of guitar. I know some people, when they get a little bit more into that quote unquote kind of professional realm, whatever that means nowadays, guitar starts to kind of suffer a little bit, and you kind of get a little bit complacent with things. But I still play quite a bit, and it's usually the same time roughly every day that I play. Like I usually get up in the morning and have a couple massive cups of coffee and just play for a couple hours and just mess around and try and enjoy playing guitar. And usually that turns into writing, or turns into improvising, where little seeds of ideas will start to come out. If there's something that catches my ear or catches just my musical sense in some way, I'll try and sit there and develop it, and I'll try and see if it's worth anything. And I have this little Boss recording unit with this built-in CD burner that I've been using for 10 years. I've written 4 albums with it, so it's kind of like my saving grace. And it's not a computer, so it's real simple to use, and you don't have to worry about connecting all sorts of stuff to it. So it's a really simple kind of like in and out kind of workflow thing, really simple. But if I have a little melody, it depends. It depends on a lot of stuff. Like sometimes I can write a piece of music in 10 minutes and be like, this is the best thing I've ever written. Sometimes it'll take me months. It'll take me a year to write a piece of music and have something finally settle and feel right.
Sure,
but
that makes sense.
There's no process. It's random. It's totally its own thing. I think what facilitates ideas coming out is having a regular. It's like almost it's weird. It's hard to explain that. Almost every day, if you're going to play at the same time, you almost kind of create this expectation, or this, if your body knows it's like a biological thing. It's like, oh, I'm playing it this time. I'm playing. You've trained yourself, right? And sometimes if you do that, you're consistent, and that comes out at the same time, or you're practicing at the same time, ideas start to flow a little easier. I notice if I take a day off or a few days off, I'll come back to the guitar and I'll be musically dull. I'll just be dead, and there's nothing exciting about what I'm playing. But if I'm consistent from day to day, I might have a melody here and a little part here, or a cool little chord change here or something. There's no process. It's just, as long as I'm playing, then hopefully something will come out. And I've had dry spells that have lasted 6 months, you know. I think from June until, it was a little bit worrying actually, from June till about October, I didn't write a single thing, nothing. But just because nothing was coming out, nothing worth anything was coming out.
Well, maybe you just the bars just got higher.
Could be, yeah. And you know, I finished writing that fourth album in when was that? That was basically last winter, or no, last spring. And I think I just needed a break from it, maybe without even realizing. You know, I've written enough music now where it's like, what am I going to do next? What's the next step? And maybe there was no next step at that point. It was just allow yourself to be influenced by other stuff before you can move forward. Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely. And
it's sometimes good just to try and exercise those writing muscles. You know, even if it's something bad that's coming out, at least you're still working on it.
Yeah. Trying to polish a turd sometimes. Just two things. I think it's interesting that you have this sort of schedule. I know a lot of people don't do that, but I'm reminded of this cool Stravinsky quote where he said something like, he was asked, you know, do you sit and write every day? What if the muse doesn't visit? And Stravinsky replied, well, he said, well, I kept my appointment.
Right. Oh yeah. Cool, man.
And I think that's kind of it. It's being there.
Yeah, you know, and it's so ingrained in me now. What I used to do, that same exact kind of approach, even when I was a teenager. I remember it was Christmas break or March break or exam break or something. I'd be up extra early for a few hours in the morning every single day, same exact schedule, playing, drinking coffee, working on stuff. And since I haven't really had I guess a morning job, anytime I was teaching in a music store, I was working in the afternoon. For about 10 years now, I've always had my mornings free. So it's always been usually 10 o'clock till noon or 1, where I'll just be working on stuff. And if I go and do like a clinic tour, or I have to go do some work somewhere, that of course it's hard to be away from that schedule. But you know, that's just the way it goes. But yeah, if I'm home or not on tour or something, it's every day I'm playing at that time, and I can't imagine not doing it. It's become so automatic.
You play just 2 questions really, just from my own experience, because I have weird habits when it comes to playing, and I wish I could shake them. And in fact, I think you're inspiring me to maybe change what I do. But what I was thinking was, when you sit down and play, is it just you and a guitar in a room, or is it you plugged into an amp, or you got the TV on, or? No,
it's and I don't know if you watch some of those newer videos I've been doing where it looks like I'm in like a whiter room. It's like a brighter room than my old videos. Anyways, that's my apartment. That's my studio in the apartment. And there's no, like, I have a computer, but there's no distractions in here. It's just amps, my guitar or an acoustic guitar, and that little recording unit. So I'm pretty old school with that, in that respect, that I don't really use a computer for recording. I don't really use backing tracks. I don't do any of that stuff. I kind of just like to sit there and just play and just, honestly, a lot of times it just comes down to that kind of pure, I just love the sound of a guitar. I just love hearing music come out of an amplifier. It's just, it'll be like that till the day I die, or the day I have to stop playing guitar, which hopefully is the day I die.
Yeah.
It's very much me and guitar and just seeing what happens.
That's pretty admirable, actually. I find myself kind of drawn to other distractions, and then kind of playing along, or trying to set up environments where I'm playing along with backing tracks, which which I don't do that often, but it's the idea of being sort of hooked into a kind of holistic musical situation, when actually what I need to do, and what maybe some people listening need to do, is just spend more time with their instrument.
Maybe, yeah. I mean, but Jake, with that being said, like, someone like you who is so good at what you do, there's something to be said about your practice routine too, where maybe I could learn a thing or two from that.
No,
God damn, how is he doing that? But I just think, I just know what works for me, and I'm honest with myself. That's one thing I've always tried to be with I never try to kid myself. I know what's going to work for me as a guitar player, and that's probably not what's going to work for anybody else. I know exactly when I have to play. I know the mood I'm in. I know what I have to be surrounded by. Like, if I have 10 emails, like urgent emails that I need to answer, I know I could sit there and just have my guitar, but what's going to be in the back of my mind is, come on, what are you doing? You gotta get back. Get back. So then my guitar playing with stuff, I gotta do that. You know what I mean? It's just like I have to be in a specific mindset, but I don't know. The whole thing with practice and the whole thing with playing guitar, it's a mess sometimes. It really is, It's not like when I was a kid where it's like, you have no responsibilities, you just play. But yes, anyways, the main thing is I know what's going to work for me, and I try not to deviate from that, because if I do, then I just get frustrated, and it stops being the F word fun.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for your kind words. We've got another question.
Oh, okay.
But we've got a question from Marcel Vining. I don't know how to pronounce your name. I do apologize. But it's from Marcel, who's just joined us. Hello, Marcel. He says, it's a question for both of us, which we've just started to sort of talk on, but we didn't really talk about the kind of ins and outs of it.
Right.
But do you sort of sit down to practice and have a routine? And if so, what is it like?
Good question. You go first. I'm interested to hear what you have to say.
I'm very, at the moment, I can only talk for the moment. In the past, I have done lots of different routine-based things, but it's been kind of a daily thing. I've gotten into this idea of chunking things into 25 minutes.
25 minutes.
Yeah, where I'll do like focused work on one issue for 25 minutes, but it'll be like minute. So I might pick like for example, incorporating a certain note in a blues, right? Just like one note, like where I'll put it. So I'll sit and play like on my own, or I'll put a backing track on, and I'll think about like what that note needs to do. And it's very like I've done it that way before. Right now, like today, I went and visited a friend of mine, bass player at the funk band I play in, Dave Marks, awesome bass player. And we just went through some standards and played along with each other and just improvised, and it was very fun and very silly. And then we tried to do some difficult stuff, like we were playing stuff in like trying to change the time signature of some jazz tunes, and it was really hard and it didn't sound good, but it was good. It was good for our brains. Yeah, so we did that sort of thing, but yeah, generally I kind of go, in my head, alternate picking is a big weakness of mine, so I'm trying to sort of work on that. I'm also really trying to work on my rhythm, so I'm trying to do things that works on those issues at the moment, and trying to play less aimlessly, but yeah, to be honest, there's no real routine. Yeah, there's no real routine, but there is kind of, I focus on an issue, and I work on it, and I try to, when I'm working on that issue, I try to work on that issue, and try not to build too much stuff in. But I also allow myself a lot of time, a couple of hours maybe a day, typically, to just play. But it's not practice, just fucking about, just playing whatever. So, but how about you?
Yeah, I mean, I've never ever had a routine. The only type of routine based stuff I would do was when I would playing my guitar. I was really hard on myself as a kid. It was always 6 or 7, 8 hours of I had to get that time in, or else it was like a little bit of an OCD kind of thing. If I didn't get that in, I just would not feel, like, physically feel well. I had to get that amount of time, and whatever I did in that time is totally irrelevant. It was just
I did the same thing.
Yeah.
I did the same thing at that point. Yeah, I did.
I can tell by the way you play. It was the exact same thing. I think now though, what's the most important thing is it's playing in front of human beings. It's playing live, and what you've been working towards was always that for me. When I play in front of somebody, what do I like? What do I do? What's comfortable? What do I fall back on? And I think one either clinic or show or an hour of playing in front of people is worth like 5,000 hours of playing by yourself. It's just, that's really when you start to understand the kind of guitar player you are, is when you're playing in front of people. So I always just think, what am I doing, and how's this going to translate? And if I want it to be free live, and especially with what I'm doing, I try to just sometimes play a guitar solo by myself without anything behind me, and just, can I make that interesting? And would this be something new to throw in there? Or, if anything, it's just new. Hopefully new stuff will start to kind of naturally pop up in my playing. Every few months I'll notice a new kind of little concept that shows up, and I don't know, again, I'm honest with myself. The type of person I am, I could never sit down and say, every day I'm going to work on this for an hour. I just don't have the patience. I don't have the discipline for that. I just like playing and hoping something cool comes out.
Yeah, cool, man. I mean, it's the same. Have you ever sort of hit a wall and sort of not really known how to get through, or did your teacher kind of give you a really good idea of what you needed to work on?
I guess any wall I hit was just like, what do I do with this information, or songwriting. I think from a technical standpoint, I always felt myself kind of improving just because of the amount of time I played guitar. I think I played so much that it was like, if I did hit a wall, I just would bust through it over time, just because you're playing so much guitar. But I never really got frustrated with it. I always enjoyed it. I never had an issue with practice. I know a lot of people that, buddies I grew up with that would always be like, I'm not going to practice, I'm going to play video games, or I'm going to go hang out and do all this stuff. I never had those issues. I just loved playing, and any wall I had would have been application of stuff. But that would be like theory-based stuff, like what do I do with this? What do I do with melodic minor? What do I do with harmonic minor? But you eventually figure it. I think it was just fun. It was always fun. I never worried about that stuff.
Yeah, okay, that's cool, man. It just sounds like it's sometimes the blunt instrument, just keep going and keep doing stuff is the best way.
Yeah, it could also be maybe a huge detriment, but I don't know. It's just the kind of person I am, I suppose.
Well, I think I wouldn't recommend to someone that they do it that way unless they've had some really good guidance at some point.
Sure, yeah.
In the basics. I think that there's a lot of bad habits you can get into and that can really hinder your progress. Oh, sorry. I'm sorry. No. What were you saying?
I was going to say, I think too, it depends on, it really depends on what you're trying to accomplish, or what your goals are too. I think my goals were always songwriting based. So I never really worried too much about, spending time working on changes or working on specific techniques, or trying to get better at something I was terrible at. I just kind of naturally gravitate towards stuff I was good at, and eventually some of those gaps get filled in just out of evolution of guitar playing. So yeah, I think that's something for people to think about too, is what do you want to accomplish, and what's realistic, and what do you think you're going to need to do to get there. So yeah, that was a huge part of it for me, is just writing, finding how to get from point A to point B with my songwriting, and sometimes the technical stuff had like when I'm working on music, technique is irrelevant. It's just using my ears and theory and writing, just coming up with melodies.
Yeah, that's cool. And I'm going to ask you two questions to finish, from like a sort of personal, just sort of personal questions. One, what do you want to accomplish in 2016? Why don't you start with that? What's going on for you this year?
Well, I'm hoping to get this new album out in September. It's looking like it should be pretty easy to accomplish that. I'm kind of setting stuff up with enough time where that's no problem. The other thing is I've got quite a bit of touring this year, so I want to just get better at live performance. I want to get better at playing in front of people and just handling myself in front of people. That and just staying positive. I think positivity with this career is essential. It's so easy to get into a negative kind of downward spiral of negativity. I mean, really, it's like sometimes you go like, this is not working, this isn't doing as well as I think it should be doing. Why isn't it going? Once you start getting those things in your head, it just spirals into something worse. But staying positive, staying busy, and just kind of more of the same. I just hope it's a good year. I got this new guitar out and there's some other kind of cool stuff I'm working on, and consistency. I guess that's really it. Just try to be consistent.
Consistency seems to be like another common theme. Like people, when they get to a certain point, they're after just maintaining a kind of level. A high level of output rather than just being able to sort of do the flashy stuff once, but just to never get it wrong.
Yes,
I think that's quite an interesting point between the kind of pro level and the sort of aspiring guy like me. But yeah, your guitar, man, that looks super awesome. It's very cool. It's all single coils.
Yeah.
It's kind of surprising. I've always been an HSS guy, but I figured maybe a humbucker in the bridge, but you seem to use that sound quite a bit.
Yeah, I've always just gravitated towards that sound and the players that use that, and I just seem to play better with, like, I've had guitars that have humbuckers in them, and I just don't sound right using. I don't know if it's something just having to dig in more, or when I use the pickup selector a lot. I don't know if you notice that. Just hearing frequencies kind of bloom a little bit. That's just something that I don't feel like I sound like myself unless I'm using.
Well, I find them to be generally more expressive, less sustaining, more percussive. So that it actually, for me, sounds a little bit more like a guitar. I know that sounds a bit of an odd thing, but it's more of a natural sound. Whereas humbuckers, they're just kind of a bit flatter sounding and more sustaining. And there is a different approach because you're actually playing a different sound, really, aren't you? Different instrument.
I don't think I can control hum. Like, to be honest with you, I don't really know how to use them properly. I know. There's more output and it bucks the hum, of course, but I don't think I'm qualified to use them. I don't know how to use them because I've spent all of my time just hearing and feeling and understanding single coils, like how the volume knob will interact with them, what the tone knob does, what the pickup selector. It's definitely a tactile thing and not just I know what these are going to sound like. It's like a feel thing. And as soon as I start using a humbucker, I don't know how to use these.
Yeah, it suits your dynamic kind of style, I guess, because you do go from sort of very light to digging in, which is pretty, which is a cool sort of facet of your playing. And that was obviously kind of launched, if you like, at NAMM. How was NAMM for you this year?
It was good. I got really sick at the end of it. Oh man, really, really sick. But it was great. It was the most playing.
Anthrax?
Yeah, man, I was in the ambulance for sure.
Anthrax, NAMM flu.
Yeah, you name it, you name it. I did some signings and I met a lot of cool people and did a bunch of playing, and it was great. It's always fun. You know what? I got to escape from the Canadian winter for a week or so, and that's always. Then I got to go to the Duncan factory again and hang out with them. And I was at Schechter for a few days, and just it was freaking great, man. What an honor! For some stupid little Canadian kid, I get to do some cool stuff. So it's just an honor.
It's a cool hang, isn't it? And everyone is very positive, and it's quite an inspiring place to be. I find. I definitely need to try and make it over next time.
It was good to see you there too, man.
Oh, likewise. It's however brief. Hopefully next time, if you're going next year, I'm going to try to get along next year. We'll schedule in a beer or so.
Yes, please.
I have one final question because I know you've got to go, but it should be a fairly kind of easy one to wrap up. What's the best song you've written?
The best song I've written, in my opinion, is the title track of the next album. Is the one that's coming up. I'm not going to divulge the name yet, but I think it's the. I'm just really happy with this next album. I think everything on there is far and away the best stuff I've done. It's more mature, a little bit more progressive. I think, especially with the way Gavin played on the tracks, it's all my favorite stuff so far. But the title track especially is like really. I think it's just like a badass piece of music. I can't wait to get this album out. I'm hoping September, or at least debut some music in August, and just get people on that. It's kind of like in that vein that Atomic Mind, that song was written. So it's got that kind of like film score-y meets a little bit of like that classical kind of harmony, and like, but at the center of it, it's still rock music. And I'm gonna really try and do something different with the guitar tones on this. Try to make them a little bit, try and roll the game back a little bit more, and just kind of see what happens with my playing.
Awesome, man. Awesome. Sounds exciting. So
I'm very excited. It's gotta come out, man.
Well, cool, man. Well, look, thanks ever so much for taking the time to talk to us. Really appreciate you coming on.
It was totally an honor. I love what you do, and you're one of those players that's just like ridiculous. And at some point, I want to hear an album from you.
Yeah. Well, you're far too kind, sir. I'll send you some stuff that I've been working on for your amusement. But I'm working on some stuff at the moment.
Cool, Jake. That sounds good, man.
Yeah, it should be okay. But anyway, dude, yes, I'll let you get off. And thanks again. And thank you guys for listening. And we'll see you soon. Take care, man.
I know this one was a little bit shorter than the ones you've done in the past. If you ever want to do a part 2, let me know. We'll do it.
Yeah, nice one. That sounds like a great idea. Take care, man.
Yeah.
Peace out. Bye-bye.